in Murder in Drury Lane, you are going to meet Anthony Danielson. He was a man with, let's say, not a great past, but he met the right woman and she's encouraging him and he's writing a play. But the problem is, even though you decide to change your life on Tuesday, there was those other days of the week that you weren't a good guy. So Anthony is murdered at Drury Lane.
Oh,
And Lady Worthing has just returned from Bath. She was hoping to meet with her world traveling husband. He did not show. And as soon as she goes home, her house is ransacked. So she's only going to the theater because the magistrate and her godfather have said to pretend everything is normal as
okay.
they investigate. So she's there. It's not working. She's highly distracted. But of course, this new murder, she has to find out it's something that she can do, that she can feel a little bit of power trying to solve as everything else in her life it seems to be unraveling.
I see.
So, who killed Anthony Danielson? It's
Yeah.
There are many suspects, and one might be the key vote in Parliament for the abolition bill that's in Parliament.
Yes, I really like that element of your story. So
Mhm.
was Anthony based on somebody that you knew that you just wanted to kill off?
No, I always think it's funny when you have these guys that you want to root for, and all of a sudden they run out of time. So no, he's completely made up. But I wanted someone that has a past because the past equals suspects. A person squeaky clean, there's no really reason why they should have been killed. And in a murder mystery, you're more so invested in who did it as opposed to the justice of why someone was killed and that sort of thing. So I want you to know, yeah, he kind of deserved to die. He's got some things, even though he turned over his life, he got some things in his past
Yes.
that could, make people want to kill him. And Lady Worthings has to figure out who did it.
So, okay, yes, very good. Very good point. We all want to know who did it. I'm not going to give anything away. So, what was it about Drury Lane that made you sort of gravitate towards that particular title for your book? I mean, Drury Lane is part of, English folklore. It's a rhyme, it's a story,
Mhm.
it's a song. What was it
Mhm.
about Drury Lane that made you want to, title your book after it?
The theater. I absolutely adore Drury Lane Theater. Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber just did a refurbishment, and he's a very exacting person, so he was able to bring back a lot of the characters of the original. But the story of Drury Lane itself is a wonderful piece of history. You have a building that burned to the ground at one point, I think in 1808 or 1807, and had to be rebuilt. You have tunnels underneath the existing Drury Lane where kings met with their mistresses. These tunnels also formerly used to go all the way to the Thames, and dock workers, because of the hoisting of the sails, the same mechanism was used to hoist the curtain. So there were gainful employment when you got off your ship. So Drury Lane is a nexus of so many different things and so many different backgrounds, from kings to dock workers. I
Interesting.
imagined a tale that would encompass all of that,
Yeah.
from all levels of aristocracy to the nit and gritty.
Yeah, I know. I understand that. That's really interesting. Thank you. What about Abigail Carrington Monroe? How did she
Mhm.
come into your life? Who is she firstly? Where did she come from? Like, was she based on somebody that
Um,
you knew?
she is part of my imagination. So I have to admit, my mother was a very big influence in what I read and what I watched on TV. And every Sunday night, we watched Murder She Wrote. And from a young girl, I always assumed that Angela was a serial killer, because how could you show up every place and there be a murder? So that concept of a woman who's minding her business is all of a sudden thrust into a mystery. I love this. And then, I did watch a fair number of soap operas as a child, Dallas and Dynasty. I picture Abigail as a young Dominique Devereaux who's rolling into
Okay.
Denver
That's so, oh my
trying
God, your
to
fans are going to be so excited right now. Yes, exactly.
exactly. She's Dominique rolled into Denver. She wanted to be known as a Carrington, hence
Mm,
the middle name, hence her maiden name.
yes,
Um,
I loved her.
you, coming against the actual society, an outsider wanting to be inside. So all those tensions, I see Abigail dealing with those, but in the context of 1806, and 1806 is a volatile time. The abolition movement has been battered because Haiti has become free. People
Yeah.
are wondering what's going to happen, twists and turns, and if you're a woman of color with privilege and means, and you thought the world was heading in the right direction, and then everything stops because the country is now free of their imperial yoke. How do you get involved? What do you do? So that's Abby. Abby wants to get involved. She wants to do everything to get the abolition movement moving.
Yeah.
But she's also a young woman that's married to an absent husband. It was a marriage of convenience.
Yeah.
So who is she without James? What does she do? How does she bide her time? How can she make the most of this position she's in? And as a married woman with means, she has access to different places. She can get around, and she has a nice circle of friends that she can utilize to help her puzzle things out or to gain information that women weren't necessarily allowed to have access to.
Right. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. That's really interesting. Thank you. Um, so Publishers Weekly described Murder in Drury Lane as an offering of a vibrant picture of the roles Black and mixed race people played in Regency life. This unique historical mystery series featuring a mixed race heroine with a notorious past, would you say might appeal to Bridgerton fans who might want like a sharper edge to their drama, or like what do you think? And have you been approached by any kind of production companies?
Not yet on the production side, but there's always hopes.
Of course.
And um, Bridgerton is a masterpiece of sights and sounds, of a level of everyone gets to play a part in fancy dress. Everyone has a story, everyone can fall in love. And I think that is exciting. But then there is this underbelly that Bridgerton does not cover, the people who are anxious about this diversity. Because for you to win something means I must lose something. So there's this underbelly. So if you're looking for a little bit more of an edge, what's happening in society, the players, Abigail's godfather was sort of a godfather. He was the Prince of Wales Prince of Wales is alleged to have had a man who fixed things for him. And that's Abigail's godfather. So she's surrounded by levels of varying influence. Her father is now, thanks to James, a successful solicitor's fund, meaning money. Money's making the world move around and things like that.
Yeah.
So the play of the roles that we have, whether it's particularly a female in this level of society, where she can get access to, what she can do, who accepts her, who doesn't accept her, what types of troubles or access she can do, because it's a double-edged sword. For every moment of agency you have this other side of people rebelling against you having that freedom. And that's the tightrope that she has to balance. See, that's the subtext of everything. A woman of the gentry wouldn't necessarily be allowed to investigate a body, particularly a man that's been killed. How do you do that and still maintain propriety? So there's a bit of realism of what Abby can do, but yet you get the grand spectacle because it's theatrics. It's Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
It's Matlock, it's Dynasty, it's Dallas, it's all this combination of fun that's going to hopefully be a nice lengthy series.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, of course. So your print, just going back to the beginning, your print debut was the novel A Duke, the Lady, and the Baby. So how did you, that was like 2020? Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's not my first book. That's the that Duke the Lady
That was
Baby
the
was my
first of the that series, yes.
yes of Rogues and Remarkable Women, and sort of
Yes.
think about Three Men and a Baby meets First Wives Club, but
Yes.
set that in the
Yes, I
Regency.
apologize. That's right. I've got it right. Yeah. So what made you, I mean, you're like this guru, hugely intellectual genius type of person with a doctorate in mechanical engineering. What was it that made you turn to writing?
I have always written. I am a nerd's nerd. And in school, I had two great talents. I was very good at math, and I was also very good at writing. So I would be the kid going to science club or math camp and coming back with the bronze medals,
Oh,
or silver or gold, mostly gold, but I don't want to brag. Um,
right. It's okay.
and
Good for
and
you.
then I would also win governor's essays, and things like that. And my mother literally sits me down one day and she's like, "Baby, I know you love to write. I know you love math, but you always need to be able to pay your bills." And at the time, young girl in the South, you didn't really see that many opportunities for people to write at this level, to be full time writing. And she's absolutely like, "You be an engineer, you work for General Motors, you definitely can pay them. Math
So,
pays."
yeah. So what made you put pen to paper to start writing your first story? What was your first
Uh,
story?
my very first story was a book called Madeline's Protector. And it was something I actually had started writing in high school. I
Oh,
had a difficult pregnancy. I
oh,
literally had to sit down for 5 months and do nothing. And my husband brings a box of papers from the attic, and one of them is a notebook that I have this story. And it's like, I have more degrees. I know what I'm doing. I did not know what I was doing. I can write this book. And I did not
wow.
know. Yeah. So I just started writing it, and it went through a life of its own, and millions of rejections. I believe I've actually written that book 125 times.
Wow.
But
Okay,
it
that
was
makes
the
me feel
first
better. So that was edited 100 and how many? 103
uh,
times?
125 times I rewrote it. Because as an engineer, you do things in increments. So okay, this version we're going to work on setting. This version we're going to work on dialogue. This version we're going to do characters, motivational arcs.
Wow.
This
In
yeah,
in
so
five, and you did all that in 5 months?
no, that took a couple years. That took a couple years.
Yeah,
So
with the
that
new
was
baby and all
literally
that.
started in 2005. I sold that book in 2010. 2010
Wow.
or
That's
yeah. So it took
amazing.
a minute. Took a minute.
Good for you. So how did you like how many like what were the roadblocks for your publishing
Mhm.
attempts? Did you find it easy to find a publisher or an editor or an agent? Who was your first reader?
Absolutely not. It was not easy. Once again, when you're talking about, I'm trying to write stories set in the Regency, the Georgian era in England. I'm a woman with a degree in mechanical engineering from California, from Stanford. I'm from the South. My father's from Trinidad and Tobago, and they're like, "Why do you want to write Regency?"
Yeah, it doesn't really fit, but that's
It doesn't
okay.
it doesn't
That's
fit
good.
until you go
Yeah.
into the
It's all
background
about
and
spirit. It's all about intention.
the background, because my mother stressed literature, so she made sure we read all the time, and Thoreau and Baldwin, and this woman called Jane Austen. So boom, I landed that, and I'm a very happy camper. My father's a storyteller. He's from Trinidad and Tobago, and the whole of the West Indies is like actually South London. because the interconnectivity. And so I personally believe it was always in my blood to
Yeah,
write
of
these
course. It
stories.
sounds like it. Yeah.
But it's at the beginning was very hard because I could imagine me writing these stories and I thought my stories were engaging. But there were times where publishing was like, we don't know if we think we love your voice. We don't really know if people are going to buy a character of color who is not enslaved, who has agency, who has money or title. We understand you know the history and you can show us all these people who
Wow.
did exactly
And this
that,
was sorry for
but we don't
interrupting you.
believe
So,
it.
and this was pre-Bridgerton?
Pre-Bridgerton, yes. So this
Wow.
is back in 2010, 2012,
2020.
2013.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
So very,
Okay.
very, so almost basically, 19 years before Bridgerton.
Wow. I wonder if
Um,
somebody, cottoned on to your work and then decided to write something of their own.
it's I would say I'm pretty much of a forerunner, and I don't mind that because
Yes.
I will take the lumps because you should be able to write what you want to write. If you do the research and you have a passion for it, there should be nothing standing in your way. And so my first book was traditionally published, and it was absent. There was like one character of color in it. Uh, she was Spanish descent because that was the closest we could get it. My next book I indie published, or actually I got an agent. She tried to shop a book and got some of the best rejections from publishing you will ever hear. Oh, we love her voice. Does she have anything else? We love this. We don't know how to market it. We love this, and the whole thing is publishing doesn't owe you anything. It's a business. And if they don't see the business model, if they don't believe they can sell it, the worst thing in the world an author can do is accept a deal because it won't be the marketing failed, the PR failed. It'll be you. You failed.
Right. So that's
That's how it
quite,
works.
I understand this because I feel that in the last few years, it's very changed from what it was even 7 years ago. I mean, there's no genre anymore. It's just whatever makes people happy to read. Is that right?
It,
What do you think?
it there is some there's two camps. So there are people who are very rigid. This is the genre. This is what the ideals of the genre, and those people who do that, they know how to market it, they know how to sell it,
Right.
and you expect a certain return. When you break those walls, such as adding diversity into these settings, or giving a woman agency that's actually historically accurate of what some of these women achieved. It's not something that Hare dreamed up because everybody loves Georgette Hare, but she made up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful, beautiful world, but that wonderful, beautiful world was absent a lot of people. Sometimes there were tropes that were dangerous, but that was the norm during that particular time frame. We're living in a world now where anybody who can write a story can write their story. They can bring their story to fruition.
Yeah.
All stories aren't necessarily for traditional publishers. They know a certain model. And literally, for me, having success as an indie is what opened the door again for traditional publishing because
Yeah.
they saw, oh, it's not just Vanessa who likes this.
Yeah.
Other people want to.
Yeah, of
And so
course.
that really opened the door. But
Yeah.
somebody has to be willing to take the risk. And I'm a firm believer in investing in yourself, of taking the leap because I knew my stories were good. I was winning awards when it was, you send them categories. I was winning awards for these for Madeline's Protector, won the Colorado and the Beacon award. So I know these are good. It just needed a chance. And once traditional publishing saw that the marketing that there's an audience for these stories, they're on board.
Yeah.
And with Bridgerton, to go back to your earlier question, Bridgerton has just broken that all open on a bigger scale because
Totally. Yeah.
now you see it. There's something about when people can visually just
Visually see it.
see
Yeah.
the beauty and the integration and the diversity and how that's not even really
an
the story. It's
artwork.
just people
Yeah,
falling in love. It's
yeah,
people falling in love, and that is the true story
yeah,
of why Bridgerton is so successful.
yeah.
So, I think that nowadays, yes, there's a lot of loosening, but sometimes those genres were too well defined, too restrictive,
Right.
and readers want something new. Sometimes they don't want what's always worked. They want something new to something different. I
Yeah, they
mean,
need to see something that's adaptive to their current
mhm,
ideologies, and
mhm,
their moral balance. You know,
mhm.
I that you mentioned something earlier about women and agency, and I was going to ask you about Sister Mother Warrior. I just think that's an amazing, amazing book, and I just love how you once said how why don't we know more about the First Nation of enslaved individuals becoming free by their own design and building a nation? Why don't we know more about that? And the roots of it are in this history. We should all know, but we don't. And the heart of this is women. Women coming to the forefront, deciding that they've had enough and wanting to be liberated. I just really love that. So how did that book come about for you?
Um, I love art and I love looking at pictorial representations of things. And I was actually literally looking at a children's book, and I saw this woman called Grand Toya in this children's book, and I was like, she was, I believe she was 65, leading an army. Actually was wounded in a battle, got up, kept fighting, and that's the day they won independence. I was like, why haven't we heard about this woman more? And I started doing research, and I found out her amazing story. And then that, because of who she is, she was a Dahomey warrior. She was actually a gal, which is one of the leaders of these Dahomey women. Um, she trains up Jean-Jacques Dessalines in how to fight. Jean-Jacques Dessalines is the man who replaces Toussaint Louverture, and he organizes the entirety of the island, and they push the French out. We know about Toussaint. We know about Jean-Jacques Dessalines. We don't know about the woman. If
I
not for her,
know.
we would not have
Oh,
him,
it's so sad.
Rantoya.
Yeah, good for
And
you. Thank you
yeah,
for doing that and
no,
bringing her
no,
to the
my
fore.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Um, so just sort of out there as a question, what are your favorite playwrights?
Ooh, I am a Shakespeare girl. I like some of the things that have been adapted from Baldwin. I completely adore. Um, but yeah, Shakespeare is my play guy. Some of the fun of writing this of Drury Lane was going back to some of the what was actually
Exactly.
played during those days, and some of those that the some of the stories are insane.
Yeah. I
Oh
mean, what do you
yes.
think? I mean, do you think that what about that conspiracy theory about Shakespeare not being Shakespeare but somebody else and all this business?
Uh, I go back and forth on that because he was so prolific, and it's like, was one man responsible for how prolific this? But he's a genius, so maybe he can write this fast. And but to know that he normalized English, which was something I hadn't realized, because before that time frame, all the different variants of English dialect. We think of English, American English versus British English. There's
Yes,
dialects prior to.
right.
He normalizes that. He normalizes the writing styles going forward. So
Yeah.
he is a momentous person. Whether he's one or two individuals, I'm not quite sure, but he's a momentous person.
Momentous people. But who
Mhm.
knows? Yeah. So just to slowly conclude, um, what other era in history would you like to tackle other than the Regency? If you
I
do.
I am actually working on a book that touches 1670s.
Wow.
That is the piracy era,
Wow.
where piracy is legal.
Right.
And the world powers are completely different. You have the Mughals or the Mughals, which is an Arab or Muslim set group of people that are one of the wealthiest in the world, and then you have Spain, who's also the wealthiest in the world, and every other country is attacking their ships because those two ships have all the gold and silver and the
Wow.
wealth of the world. That's different.
Yeah, that sounds like a really huge, yeah, a huge job. So how
Mhm.
is your research with this? Is it all on the internet, or are you going to libraries, or are you traveling, or?
I traveled to Key West, Florida to look at some of the shipwrecks because many of those
Wow.
shipwrecks are from that particular
How
time period.
wonderful.
And it's absolutely amazing. The water is so clear blue, you can see things below.
Yeah,
It's just, but there's over 1,000 different shipwrecks around Key West.
yeah, I'm sure. And just quickly, what are you working on now? I mean, you're working on this story. Is it
Mhm.
just this, or are you also working on short stories, or are you working on the third part of
Yeah.
Drury Lane, or?
So I'm typically working on a couple projects at the same
I
time.
thought so. Yeah.
So I just told you a little bit the potential pirate. That's my next historical fiction. I'm working on the third uh, Lady Worthing series,
Lady
which is Murder
Worthington.
in Berkeley Square.
Oh,
Sort
nice.
of think Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None kind of
Nice.
takeoff. So
Cool.
that's going to be fun. And then working on a new historical romance called Never Bet Against the Duke. The first one is A Gamble at Sunset. So you have a
Wow.
long ranging bet
Wow, you're a
of a
busy
duke.
person. How are you
Yep.
managing three books at the same time without being, confused, or,
I take great notes in Scrivener.
good for you.
Take great notes, and the thing is, when you're in the zone, so I try and get through
You're in the zone,
because
right?
some things are in revision, some things are in copy edits,
Yeah.
some things are just the fresh manuscript that I'm writing. You keep it in pockets,
Yeah.
but you have to the schedule for traditional publishing. You got to keep up with the schedule, so
Yeah.
certain
Yeah.
things have to happen at certain time frames. As well as with the indies that I know that are killing it, it's a business, so they have schedules for when things go into copy edits and proofing and that
Oh,
sort of
okay.
thing. So,
So how do you so like how do you start your day? Like, which do you decide you're going to work on? Like, does it depend on the deadline, or does it depend on your
deadline, ding,
inspiration?
ding, 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 ding. Yes, deadlines always.
Yeah. So what
Yeah,
do you
so
do? Do
deadlines
you do you
drive.
have like a ritual? Do you have a certain pen, or do you like writing on paper, or do you like typing, or do you have a little room that you like with no, windows, or like how do you write?
Gotta have windows. You have to have windows. I am a night writer, so typically during the day I do a lot of the research during the day, calling libraries, digging through, ancient books and whatnot. But usually at night is when I'm focused on whatever chapter that I need to write or what scenes I need to write. I close myself away in my office and I'm in the zone. So it's I'm a tactile writer, so I will have scents or fragrances of whatever I'm trying to put myself in the place. I have scraps of fabrics, so if I'm describing the dresses or the uniforms and things like that, you try and do as much as you can, but you know, writing is putting butt in seat, pretty much.
Yeah,
Butt must
like
be in
most things.
seat in order to get done. And so
Yeah,
there's a high quantity of that. Although
yeah,
I have tried dictation on the treadmill, that does work too.
yeah. I'm trying to tell my daughter this. You have to do your homework. You have to put your bottom on the seat. That's the only way you can get through it. Getting through it is getting through it. Anyway,
Exactly.
thank you so much for your time today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and we are thrilled for your success and looking forward to the third installment of this wonderful series. So, yeah, the last thing that we'd like to ask you is if you could have dinner with anyone in the world, of this world or not of this world, who would they be?
I would love to have dinner with, I would have love to have like a collective dinner. And in
Yeah.
this dinner, I would love to have Oprah Winfrey,
Oh.
um, Reese Witherspoon,
Ah,
Jenna Bush, and Meghan Markle.
really? That's
And
amazing.
I would love for us to just have a great time.